Hello everyone, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I will be breaking down GBP, JPY, and all of these pairs which I have been forward testing. So, if you all watched my previous video, I said I am in a trade. Um, um, I took, I was waiting actually. I said I'm waiting for a break of these highs and a retest. Please look at my last video to see the breakdown of that, of why I looked for this trade. There's a full breakdown of my last video. But currently I'm in a buy and my trade is in a break even right now. I'm looking for, that's not my TP. My TP is right now into this resistance, but I'm looking to see if price can go into this area right here into this Fibonacci area. I don't really use Fibonacci, but it's just a measuring tape just because there's no previous PA. So my current TP is currently here. Please look at my last video. What I'm looking at right now is for GJ to go continue its bullish momentum. When you look at the monthly time frame, we can clearly see that we are bullish. We're forming higher highs and higher lows on our wicks. We can see the monthly is forming a higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher high, higher high, higher high, and just pinched above that high to form a further higher high. So price is clearly on the upside. Um, we can see maybe the furthest I can see that unless there's an engulfing, price performing a nice engulfing in June, and then we can potentially look for downside momentum into 188 in July and our third quarter. So maybe that's a possibility, but as of right now, the market's not told me or showed me. So we are still looking for buyers. I am not looking to trade against the army of buyers. Think of it like an army. Bullish momentum, bullish momentum, bullish momentum. We have slowed down. The weekly candle has shortened a little bit, but I don't want to trade against this army. A lot of you, a lot of traders, even me sometimes, we try to catch the reversals and sell. When we just think of it as you're trading against an army. Q Bank said that perfectly, right? So when I look at the daily time frame, we saw bullish momentum, right? We formed a nice little double bottom here, right? We saw wicks to the downside and we pushed up, and price came back and rejected this area, and we saw another bullish engulfing. So since the daily is looking bullish as well, and we've had a nice bullish engulfing on the daily time frame, you can go to the 4 hour. The 4 hour is also now looking quite bullish. We can see that we formed a high, higher low, higher high. I am looking for some pullback here for price to continue its upside momentum. Um, a good clue is the daily is not formed a wick to the upside. So there's a very high probability, right, that the daily needs to go back up for this Monday candle. So we've not formed that upside wick, which I like usually because most of the time we form the wick to the upside. I know here we didn't, but when do we not form a wick on, look, we formed a little wick. We formed a wick, but right now there's only once here we didn't. But we haven't formed the upside wick, which is nice to see. On the 4 hour time frame, I can see that we are clearly bullish. So I am looking for price to continue its higher high and higher low patterns. High, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, continue on. If this is disrupted and we break below this area, there's a higher probability we will push back to the downside. But that has not occurred yet, so we will visit that scenario when it comes. As of right now, we are seeing that price is quite bearish in this current moment. The market just opened, 38 minutes ago, and the price has just leaped to the downside. So for me, I am looking for buys. I am still looking for buys. I am just seeing if price can come into this area of support and retest this previous area of resistance. If price can maintain above this area and give us an engulfing, such as this, we get a rejection and then we get an engulfing, I am going to place my stops below this low or just below this zone. Maybe you could put it right here and have your TP up here. So potentially, if let's just say that does occur, we could have our stops around here and we could put our TP up there and get a nice, sorry, in my red area, just below the zone. We can get a nice 1 to 2 risk to reward trade. Um, and that would be good. But I do anticipate price breaking up further and breaking up into around 202 and continuing the bullish momentum. Unless price proves me otherwise, unless price shows us rejections and we get some sort of bearish engulfing on the 4 hour time frame of this area, I will not be expecting that because price has rejected to the upside and potentially formed a double top. That's just what I'm looking at. Let's just look at the 4 hour. Yeah, the 4 hour. If we get an engulfing like that, I think we may come back down to these lows and form a triple bottom, which GJ likes to do. But I don't think that's probable right now. I expect a pullback here and a continuation to the upside. Great. In regards to US 30, US 30, we have caught some crazy, amazing moves. Please look at my previous videos to see what kind of trades we have been taking or we have been forward testing, right? So if I look at US 30, in regards to US 30, right, we had a nice little rate at 38,000. We identified a nice area of support. I believe on the 4 hour time frame, I believe, yes, we can clearly see this is a nice area of support, support, support. And price had left a huge prominent wick where money left the market, then buyers came into the market showing huge momentum. We came above this area, we retested this area of resistance, which now became a support, and price continued all the way to the upside. And we can see that happening now. But if we quickly look at the weekly time frame, um, it seems that the weekly wanted to push price back down into this area right here. The weekly has been forming higher highs and higher lows. If we clearly look at this, right, we can see a high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, lower high. We broke this previous low, so the structure shifted. But what actually happened was we didn't form a lower high and continue this. What we actually did was break this previous high, so we went bullish again. So we broke this low to go bearish. But when we went bearish, we didn't form that lower high to continue down. What we actually did was come back and break the previous high. So we continued our bullish momentum. I can create a video on structure. If anyone does not know how to read structure, just leave a comment below and I'm happy to create a video on how to read structure. But you can see that weekly was pushed down into 38,000 and the buyers came into play and pushed price back up. The candle left a huge wick to the downside, which shows us that the sellers, yo, yo, which shows us that the sellers were struggling to break price to the downside and the buyers came into play. If we look at the daily time frame, what actually happened was we had a huge bullish candle, a huge bullish engulfing where price closed way back above this area, showing us that there was lots of buying momentum here. Do I want to sell against this candle? Absolutely not. We can also see we've closed above this area of resistance and this area of support. So for me, the highest probability scenario is to wait for a pullback into this area, wait for some sort of 4 hour rejections and some 30-minute engulfing before I can look to take price into our next area of interest, which is this nice resistance. And you can see nice bullish momentum. The last time we closed above this area, we retested and pushed up. So I'm looking for some sort of projection here and a push up. US 30 likes to move fast, so we need to be sharp and ready. For example, if you look at the 30-minute time frame, we can see here we had a nice engulfing and price flew up. I'm looking for a similar sort of reaction into this area for me to look for buys. You can also see we have a nice area of resistance here, so price could come and dip back into this zone here, give us an engulfing, and we can take an entry and look for buys into this area right here. And we can see what happens. Perfect. In regards to when we get into this area, of course, I'll wait for a break and a retest because price is very bullish right now. But yeah, we can see how the daily closes around this area when it comes to it. In regards to NAS, again, what we can see is that price was rejecting these highs. We had an engulfing. So you could see this as always weekly going bearish since we have rejected 18,900. Potentially you could, and maybe if price does close down like this week and maybe the week after, we can look for continuations to the downside. But for me, I am more fixated on the structure. We can still see the weekly is bullish. So if the weekly is still bullish, why? Because it's forming higher highs and it formed a high lower low, but we broke up and broke the previous high, so we've continued our bullish momentum. Also, in the last week of May, we closed above this area. If we just create a little zone, um, like this, we closed above. So the weekly went below this area and it could have been seen as a strong engulfing, but the buyers pushed us back above this area, showing us that there is some good momentum and some good buying power in this zone. So maybe we can see the weekly dip back into this area, then continue to the upside. If the weekly closes below this, the week after we can look for retests like this for price to leak to the downside to our next areas of interest. Looking at the daily time frame, do I want to sell against this prominent wick? Absolutely not, right? Buyers pushed price all the way back up. So why am I going to sell against this wick? What's the probability of the next daily candle looking like this? Very low. It's possible, but it's not really high, right? So I'm not going to look for that. I am, based off the weekly, looking quite bullish. Based off the daily closing like this, I am looking for buys, right? You can also see we had a lot of momentum in this area. We can see this was a nice support, 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 support. Price pushed into this area. Buyers pushed out of this zone into this area. But what happened was sellers had a lot of momentum and pushed down, but buyers came back into play again and pushed us back that weekly fat zone. We don't need a zone that big. Let's remove it. It was just for the weekly to show you. We can remove that as well. So we've come back above this area, a nice support. You could be aggressive and look for buyers here and then look for push up. But for me, since the momentum and the huge, look at this candle. It's removed. Look at that candle. I don't want to sell below this area. For me, the most probable high probability trade would be a break of this area, showing that the sellers could not push buyers back below, break of this area, and a retest. And I want us to reject this area. Once we get that rejection, we can look for buyers into our next area of interest. I hope that makes sense. If you have any comments, any questions, please do leave a comment below. Gold, gold had an engulfing. So this is very interesting to see. If we zoom in, if we look at the monthly, we've had two huge wicks to the upside. So it seems that we are struggling to push to the upside. We could maybe see some downside moves this month, sorry. We could potentially see another leg to the upside and then price potentially pushing down this month. So we need to be careful with gold if we're going to be looking for long-term buys. If you look at the weekly time frame, we rejected 2,400 twice here, and then we came above this area and we had a strong engulfing back below. So the weekly is looking quite bearish in that sense, even though it's forming higher highs and higher lows overall. It is rejecting the highs and the monthly is rejecting the highs as well. So I am more invested in sales. Also, if we look at the candlesticks, right, we were forming higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. We were forming higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. So we were bullish. Then when we came into this area, we formed what? Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low, lower low. Then when we came into this zone, what happened? We formed a higher low, higher low, higher low, higher high, higher high, higher high. It seems some sort of pattern, right? And then what happened? We came back into this area and look what we are doing again. Lower, low, sorry, we formed the higher, higher high, lower high, lower low, lower low. So what's the probability of us forming a lower high? Maybe we could come back into here, and as long as we maintain below that wick, we can look for sells to the downside. So what I am looking for is, if we scale down to the daily time frame, we can see we are forming a low, a lower high, a lower low. We had this little wick to the upside. I am looking for price to break below this area of support, and then break and retest this area and price to push to the downside. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, this was a nice area of support, resistance, resistance, support. Price needs to close below, give us that retest. We can look and put our stops there and take price, sorry, to the downside. Great. EJ, I'm not really trading that. EU, Again, we are looking quite bullish. We broke structure. We had these rejections to the downside into 1.08. Yeah, we had a rejection here. We had a rejection. We closed above the 50 moving average and tapped into the moving average. So we also closed above, we had a wick above high, forming above the previous high. So if we break this high, so what I'm looking for this week is maybe a leg to the downside, but I'm not interested in buying, sorry, unless we come back into here, or if we can break and retest and look for buys into 1.09. If you look at the daily time frame, we've just been forming high, high, low, high, 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 low, high, 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 low, high, 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 low. So I am not looking to trade against that. We can see that price pulled back into this area of support right here, and we have pushed up. It seems we are struggling to break 1.0872, as it's evident in the past. We couldn't break, and when we finally broke, we had a retest and we pushed up. So I am looking for a similar pattern to that. I'm looking for us to finally break with a daily and a pullback potentially on the wick low and look for buys to the upside. On the 4 hour, again, it's a nice area of resistance. I would want a closure, retest, rejection, and look for buys into here. Very simple, very straightforward. EU is very similar to GJ. I'm quite bullish, so it's quite similar analysis. But yeah, that's my weekly analysis. I hope that was educational. And please do like and subscribe. And thank you very much. If it was helpful and you think it will help anyone else, please do share the video. Peace.